Welcome everybody to the November 2013 meeting of Subways and Buses. Are there any public speakers?
We have two public speakers this morning.
Okay.
The first speaker is Orrin Getz.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, members of the board. My name is Orrin Getz. First thing I'd like to show you is a Metro card. The back of the card is strictly in Spanish, not in English. Our Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York is written in English. While it's great to encourage foreign languages on our instruction cards, we still have to have English as shown on every single document. I was required to pass an English Regents at Great Neck High School, and I think it's important for us to use English. We can use other languages, but English is critical. The second issue, real quick, is there are long lines at customers trying to get on the New York City subways at Penn Station to the 1, 2, and 3 trains from the Long Island Railroad Concourse. There are not enough vending machines. There are not enough service clerks on duty to handle that. That is something that is chronic, that has to be addressed. It is obscene to see those long lines because there are not enough ticket vending machines and only one clerk on duty. I think the MTA can do a lot better in that. And the third item is the hiring of veterans. We've heard about diversity, and it is very important. Veterans are a diverse group. They are patriotic people. They are good workers. They have technical skills. We have to make sure that we do our duty to hire veterans. It is absolutely critical. This is something that the MTA has to aggressively pursue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Getz. The next and last speaker is Murray Bowden.
The big one's heavy. It is my privilege to present to New York City Transit for their contribution to Fast Track, which kind of saved the subway system in Sandy. And on account of there are 2 menorahs made from recycled anchor chain. And Carmen, if you can accept them on behalf. In recognition of the way you thought differently, you thought outside the box. You changed rules that were here for 100 years. You shut down a system in a certain section and you cleaned the track. And had New York City Transit not done that, the subways would not have come back as quickly as they did. We speak about a lot of things changing. It's the red fire engine phenomena. We've always used red fire engine. We've always used the red flashing lights at grade crossings. They can't change. You've changed. You've, and the organization changed to the extent. Now, why are menorahs important? They're used at Hanukkah, and it's 8 candles that burn 8 days. And at another meeting, someone once said that the miracle of having oil for 1 day that lasted 8 days was a miracle, and that's what that commemorates. The miracle that you created Fast Track and brought the subway system back, that was another miracle. So on behalf of my grandchildren and everybody else's grandchildren in that generation, we want to thank you and New York City Transit and the MTA for thinking out of the box, for planning for the future. Because if we don't have a few other things that change for the future, this is all about economics. Chuck at the last meeting said we need more jobs in New York State. He's right. We need to make New York State as friendly as possible. So these 2 presentations are thank you from my generation to the next generation. Thank you.
We thank our public speakers. We will seriously consider those improvements suggested by the first speaker. And Murray presenting menorahs to Carmen Bianco, Daryl, and to Joe Leader and Tom Prendergast is thoroughly unexpected, but thank you very much. Speaking of Carmen and Joe, congratulations, by the way, to Joe on his appointment as Senior Vice President for Subways, and to Carmen. We will turn the meeting over to you guys. Oh, I think we have to approve the minutes of the last meeting. I knew that. Anybody have any additions or corrections? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve them. Second, all in favor? Are there any changes to the work plan? Okay, now it's yours, Carmen.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the acknowledgement that it's certainly something that means a lot to me from this perspective, in that we have a wonderful leadership team at New York City Transit and just a phenomenal group of employees that make up the entire team, and they deserve all the credit for all that great work, both in Fast Track and in and the work we were able to do during the storms. So thank you. If we can, I'd like to turn it over to Joe, who will take us through the operations report on subways.
Okay, good morning. Regarding subway weight assessment and on-time performance, system-wide weekday weight assessment for the past 12-month period improved 0.3% to last year's average. Terminal on-time performance over the same period decreased slightly. The 12-month average was down 2.4% as compared to the same period the previous year. During September, we experienced a significant disruption to our service caused by two separate incidents on the B and the D line south of 81st Street, resulting in a total of 471 train delays. Shifting track plates stored near the third rail shorted out the signal system, causing an AC power failure as well as a fire and smoke condition on all four tracks during the morning rush and extending into the midday period. It was determined that a new rust inhibitor that was applied to the track plates by the manufacturer caused the incident. New work procedures have already been implemented regarding the storage of track plates near the right-of-way to prevent another incident of this kind. As I mentioned last month, we are in the process of exploring new strategies to improve our delay management performance. One such initiative recently implemented has greatly improved communications between the Rail Control Center and our maintenance personnel during an incident. It involves assigning a maintenance-away general superintendent to the RCC to expedite the response to an incident, thus greatly reducing the duration and the number of trains affected. So far, it has proven to be successful in reducing the duration of incidents and enabling an immediate response of maintenance personnel armed with the proper tools and equipment that they need to attack the incident. During one recent significant incident, this initiative allowed us to avoid a suspension in service. Instead, we were able to institute a slow speed and keep service going. In terms of MDBF, in September, MDBF was 120,645 miles, down 21.4% from 153,417 in September of 2012. The 12-month average was 156,415 miles, down 6% from 166,392 miles for the preceding 12 months. The difference in failures is primarily attributed to the performance of the newer car fleet. These fleets are now beginning their 7- and 14-year maintenance overhauls. Moving on to key performance indicators, system-wide service KPI was 81.5%, down 1.1% from 82.6% in September of 2012. System-wide passenger environment survey KPI was 91.6%, up 0.7% from 90.9% in September of 2012. The Staten Island Railway PES KPI was 92.8%, up 1.1% from 91.7% in September of 2012. In terms of our Fast Track program, Fast Track continues to enable the efficient completion of maintenance tasks by allowing the broad track access in designated service corridors. There have been 25 Fast Track occasions through the end of October, out of a total 29 that are planned for 2013. The results include a reduction in outstanding defects and a safer work environment for our employees. We estimate the productivity benefit of the work accomplished through the beginning of September to be at $15 million. The 2013 Fast Track program includes almost twice as many Fast Track occasions as in 2012, and we continue to grow the program as we look at 2014. And for 2014, we're projecting about 32 Fast Track occasions. We are very pleased with the production that we have achieved with Fast Track and are most proud of the continued improvement towards employee safety. For a Superstorm Sandy update, we continue to experience operational challenges as a result of Superstorm Sandy. Progress on recovery work continues, both in the under-river tubes and with other assets. In the Greenpoint tube on the G line, 10 weekends have been completed so far, and to date resulting in the repair of over 3,300 track feet, as well as 83,000 feet of cables. Outages of the Greenpoint tube are also being used to improve station environment. Over 95,000 square feet of station ceilings and columns have been scraped and painted at Greenpoint and the 21st Street stations, and 28 stairways have been rehabbed. Intense around-the-clock work continues in the Montague Street tube, with nearly all cabling and tunnel lighting removed, and heavy demolition of the duct banks 90% complete on one of the two tracks in the under-river tubes. Regarding resiliency, efforts in Lower Manhattan have taken major strides recently with the successful installation and testing of prototype flood prevention measures for station stairway entrances and street-level vent grates at some of our most vulnerable locations. We are also happy to announce that we are nearing the in-house completion of a new pump train that was built through refurbishing old and unused equipment. The pump car work has been completed. The hose and reach cars are nearing completion and will be tested in the coming weeks. This additional pump train will significantly add to our pumping capabilities in the future. And finally, I would like to update the board on the Arthur Kill Station project in Staten Island Railway. We broke ground on the new Arthur Kill Station on Staten Island on October 18th. It will replace two stations, the Atlantic and Nassau stations. Substantial completion is scheduled for October 2015, with demolition of the Atlantic and Nassau stations to commence soon afterwards. The new station will be 100% ADA compliant, include a pedestrian overpass between the two platforms, as well as provide parking for approximately 150 vehicles in the future. And that is my report for the month, and if I see there's questions.
Any questions for the appropriately named Joe Leader? Chuck?
Quick question. On the, and you guys, every rider will tell you, you folks have done a superb job. And all I'm trying to do is hone in on a question. 2, 4, and 5 lines. Mm-hmm. In each of those 3 lines, the statistics have been worse than they were, for example, last year when we had a storm of some considerable magnitude. And the statistics are worse now across the board, SKPI, etc. My question is there some reason why 2, 4, and 5 are in that shape?
You want me? Okay. What we've seen in the 2, 4, and 5 is an increase in overall delays. When you look at delays versus weight assessment, it's not apples for apples. Mm-hmm. As you see, we've seen an increase in delays since September 2012. However, the on-time performance hasn't dropped in significantly as much as the delays have gone up. There's a few issues that we're seeing there. This past month, we've seen a increase in the number of incidents. More than 50% of them have happened during the AM and the PM rush, during a small 9-hour window of the entire day. So therefore, what we're doing is by adding the extra general superintendent, we're hoping to reduce the time length of the delay. We are also looking at some additional initiatives in the future. We hope in the next 2 months to try a pilot program called the CAT team. It's a combined action team, which will, for the first time, put together 3 divisions in one van that can respond to incidents. So therefore, we get the appropriate people to an incident and try and mitigate the delays. And I think finally, the last thing that we're seeing is that when you look at the schedules for the 2, 4, and 5, they have not been changed in over a decade. We are presently reviewing what operations planning has presented to RTO. We're looking at those schedules to see how we can implement them and improve the on-time performance.
I'm a little wary of that because, if I may, Mr. Chairman, wary of that because you can diddle around with the schedules and make things better that really underneath the surface are not necessarily better, just by building in delay. My concern is really this. Would you give some consideration to taking a random day, a random week, plotting out what causes the delays on that day? And I believe Carmine probably is way ahead of me and has already done that. And try to understand what it is. This is bad. I mean, 69%, if you take the terminal number, 69, means almost half of the trains have got that kind of delay.
Let me jump in and just share a few thoughts. I think I would agree with everything that Joe said, and in fact of the matter is we do have to look at the schedules. That's important to do that. The schedules haven't, the running time in the schedules, so you could take a train from its terminal point and run it the first 5 or 6 stations, no one working on the tracks, no delays, just normal operation, and at that first timing point the train's already late. When you have that in your actual running times, you want to make sure that you're looking at them, and you should do that periodically, and we are doing that right now. The other thing I think that's really important, and I've said this a number of times over the last couple of years, and I want to just keep emphasizing it, I have put, and I know Joe has, and the entire leadership team at Subways has put an awful lot of emphasis on evenness. And if you look at those numbers, they're stable. The evenness is our customers expect a train, whatever that headway is, if it's every 5 minutes, it's every 3 minutes, they want a train on the platform at that point in time. And that's what we really try to tell our leadership team as you go through the ranks. That's what we tell them we want them to concentrate on. Concentrate on the evenness of the service. Now, you have all that happening in a system that requires an awful lot of attention in terms of inspections, in terms of repairs. And you also, please keep in mind that we have record ridership out there today. So there's a lot of moving parts to this. This is not an easy issue. It's complex, but we are looking at it. We have a large number of people that look at this from various disciplines, not one, not just one discipline, but from transportation, from operations planning. All types of groups are involved in this, and we too want to find out what we can do to improve on it. So we're very interested in that.
With respect, and I'll end the point, only a fool or a rogue would say that you don't have a difficult task. It is clearly difficult, it is clearly complex. My concern is because you and I have had this conversation, those lines seem to have this problem popping up periodically. And there's got to be some inherent problem. It could be this schedule. It could be any one of 15 things. And it seems to me we owe it to the public just to focus in on that.
Yeah. We're doing that.
Okay. Thank you, Joe, and congratulations on your appointment. You know, Joe has an encyclopedic mind about every single detail in the subway system. He's a little better than Andrew Albert on this, but it's close. And he is always here around the clock. I hate to micromanage Carmen, but if you see him here for 5 days in a row and he hasn't gone home, will you please, suggest that he have some R&R a little bit? Because if we had to pay senior management overtime, we'd be bankrupt because of Joe. Thanks for all you're doing, Joe, and congratulations.
We're very fortunate to have him.
Over to you, Darrell.
Good morning. Today I will cover performance highlights for both fixed route bus and paratransit operations for the month of September and the past 12 months through September. Before I cover performance highlights, however, I would like to provide an update on the planned rollout of our newest SBS route, the B44 SBS in Brooklyn. This will be our 6th SBS route and the first for Brooklyn. Beginning on Sunday, November 17th, the B44 SBS will replace the B44 Limited, but with longer hours and better frequency. Local B44 service essentially unchanged and will continue to operate around the clock. This will be our first route in Brooklyn using articulated buses. The buses will be low floor with 3 doors and will also have the distinctive SBS branding. New York City DOT has installed approximately 9 miles of red painted camera-enforced bus lanes to speed up bus service. In most cases, the bus lanes are offset or 1 lane away from the curb. Lastly, one feature of select bus service which is being introduced on the B44 is bus bulbs in many SBS stations to allow more space for customers to wait for street furniture such as shelters, fair machinery, benches, wayfinding totems, and landscaping. This will be the first SBS route to have received an FTA Small Starts grant. Now back to our regular agenda. I'll start with fleet reliability. For the month of September, the combined bus MDBF was 4,859 miles, or 5.6% lower when compared to September 2012 levels. When looking at our performance over a rolling 12-month period through September, combined MDBF was 5,117 miles, or an improvement of almost 18% when compared to the prior 12-month period. Next, I'll talk about our service delivery indicators for the month of September. The percent of completed trips was 99.2%, no change when compared to September 2012. Scheduled pullouts for AM and PM peaks were 99.7 and 99.9 respectively. AM and PM performance when compared to September 12 were essentially unchanged. When looking at our performance over a rolling 12-month period, the percent of completed trips was 99.2, an improvement of 0.6%. AM pullouts were at 99.7, and PM pullouts were at 99.9, both higher than the 12-month period before. Regarding paratransit performance, in September 2013, there was an increase of 1.2% in the total number of access-a-ride requests for service when compared to the same period in 2012. For the full 12-month period, requests for service fell by 3.1% when compared to the previous 12 months. Access-a-ride passenger no-shows in September 2013 when compared to 2012 were 0.2% lower, and over the past 12 months have been relatively flat within 1.1%. That completes bus operations, and I'll turn it over to Cheryl Kennedy if there are no questions.
Okay, Joe, go ahead.
Okay, the safety results for subways were as follows. In the month of August, the accident rate per million customers decreased by 12.7% when compared to August 2012. The subway customer accident rate increased by 4.3% over the previous 12-month period. There were 76 confirmed subway fires for the month of September, an increase of 24.6% from September 2012. Also, over the last 12 months, fires have increased by 3.9%. 100% of all fires were categorized as being low or average in severity for the month of September. The employee lost time accident rate increased by 20.1% for the Department of Subways during the month of September 2013 compared to September 2012, and increased by 10.2% for the rolling 12-month period. The safety results for NYCT Bus and MTA Bus through September 2013 were as follows. The combined 12-month rate for bus collisions per million miles traveled increased by 8.9% through September 2013. The bus collision injuries per million miles also increased by 4.9% for the same period. The combined 12-month rate for bus customer accidents per million customers decreased by 11.7% through September 2013. Bus customer accident injuries per million customers also decreased by 8.1% for the same period. The employee lost time accident rate decreased by 10.5% for NYCT Bus and decreased by 44.9% for MTA Bus for the month of September 2013 compared to September 2012. The rolling 12-month rate was down 11.5% for NYCT Bus and 25% for MTA Bus. The NYCT employee lost time accident rate increased by 0.7% for the month of September 2013 versus September 2012. However, the rolling 12-month rate was down 1.5% from the previous year. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Any questions?
Thank you to Darrell. Andrew?
I don't know if this is for you, Cheryl, or for Carmen or Joe, but when you have this amount of subway fires and the apparent cause of a good many of them is debris, are we putting extra cleaners out there? Are we looking to see if those are in locations where we've removed garbage cans, for instance, or if there are paper stands nearby, or what the cause of these fires are, or the debris is? Is it left by track gangs, or is it paper? What is the cause? What kind of debris is it, for instance?
Okay, we did see an increase of 15 fires, you know, if you compare last September versus this September. They are right-of-way debris fires, where we saw our increase. And Joe is hiring another 23 people to deal with cleaning on the right-of-way.
Is this debris that passengers have thrown onto the tracks, or that is from an overflowing trash can, or that a track gang left? What kind?
Let me jump in there. The answer is yes.
Thank you.
Right.
Yes, it's most of it's debris that comes off of the platform. We have not stopped our cleaning efforts. We continue to. The same number of employees are out there. One of the things that we are experiencing, though, is that the use of our vacuum trains, we have 2 of them. They're at the end of their useful life. We're in the next capital program, we're hoping to procure new trains. They're a lot of work to keep them up and running. So we have one, I believe now, Joe, ready to start back up. And we run them around the system, and they pick up an awful lot of that debris that's on the roadbed. But no, our goals have not changed, and we need to get the trains. We need to keep the trains. That's the biggest asset that we have.
Do we have campaigns that, you know, throwing litter down can delay your service, and, you know, please don't litter and things? I mean, we've done that before, haven't we?
Yes.
Yeah. To no avail, I guess.
Yes, and we owe the committee a report on the trash can pilot, if you will. So we have to come back to you on that.
Alan?
Yeah, I'm not sure what this means, but our on-time performance with buses has increased over the last year, but the number of accidents has also increased, bus collisions. And I was wondering, is it because the number is so small?
No, they're on 2 separate paths, Alan. We have seen an increase in collisions, particularly in Manhattan, and specifically to a specific group of bus operators that their tenure is from right out of probation 1 year to 36 months. So they're driving most of it. The other big driver is Manhattan, high pedestrian density, distracted drivers. So we're spending a lot of time focusing on those groups and those type of incidents. In terms of on-time performance and weight assessment, we've seen an increase as we rolled out bus time. So that I would say that it's most attributable to a change in behavior amongst bus operators in those 3 boroughs.
Okay, it's time for crime, and it's my pleasure to introduce Chief Joseph Fox, who is probably also appropriately named too. Joe?
Good morning. Thank you, Mark. Good morning, all. I'm pleased to report that total major felony crime is down 7.4% within the transit system compared to the same period last year. These 167 fewer incidents include a 24.7% year-to-date decline in robberies, a reduction of 167 robberies this year. Grand larceny incidents remain virtually even, 1,396 compared to 1,400, decrease of 0.3%. The month of October, total major felonies were up 1.8%, or 4 incidents, 225 compared to 221. Robberies were down 8%, or 4 incidents, and grand larcenies increased by 3.3%, or 5 incidents. Year-to-date, we have averaged 6.9 major felonies per day. The number of major felonies is down from the 7.5 per day that occurred in the same period in 2012. Of the major felonies year-to-date, 33% were committed in Manhattan, 15% in Queens, 33% in Brooklyn, and 17% in the Bronx. As you know, 2 weeks ago, we marked the anniversary of Hurricane Sandy and subsequent shutdown of the transit system. You'll recall that the storm had a significant impact on crime as well, lowering it substantially during the period. This effect was most dramatic during the first week of November, and we therefore anticipate that the effects of the storm and the suspension in service in terms of our year-to-date comparisons will be reflected in our forthcoming November crime reports. I'm pleased to report recent successes in curbing thefts from inattentive or sleeping passengers. During the past 2 months, we have apprehended several persistent offenders responsible for these thefts, predominantly in Queens, where we have experienced an increase in this category of larceny during the months of September and October. Of the 21 grand larcenies from sleeping passengers in Queens during this time period, 10 were closed with immediate arrests. I'm pleased to report that this results in a 47.6% closure rate, an excellent percentage for this type of crime. One of the arrests involved one of our most persistent offenders, Christopher Harris. On October 16th, Sergeant Brian Sear, police officers David Grizzle, Martin Wicklow, and Frankie Soto of District 22 Plainclothes Anti-Crime Team were conducting an operation in Queens to target these offenders. At 3:50 a.m., they observed Harris stand over a sleeping victim on board an E-train at the Parsons Archer station. The officers observed Harris kneel beside the victim and use a razor blade to slice open the victim's pants pockets, and remove his wallet. The team quickly moved in, arrested Harris, and recovered the victim's property. Christopher Harris has an extensive arrest history, including 24 arrests for grand larceny within the transit system dating back to 1989. He's currently being held on $20,000 bail pending his next court date. Attention to quality of life issues within the subway system remains a high priority. Specific incidents that are related to passengers' quality of life and safety are consistently monitored for heightened focus. These offenses include disorderly conduct, panhandling, and passing between train cars, among others. Some of our quality of life crimes goes hand in hand with other crimes. One example that we encounter involves the illegal sale of MetroCard swipes. As you're likely aware, criminals who engage in illegal MetroCard swiping sometimes disable MetroCard vending machines within the station. This tactic is used in an effort to inconvenience passengers who need to use these machines to purchase a fare, often leaving them no other option than to purchase an illegal swipe from the very same perpetrator who damaged the MVMs. The effect is twofold. These offenders not only damage transit property, but they make passengers feel uncomfortable in their attempts to control entry to the system. With the help of our MetroCard Fraud Task Force, borough units and district plainclothes teams, we aggressively address this issue. We monitor the stations with the highest incidence of disabled machines with the help of reports provided daily by the New York City Transit. This allows us to rapidly deploy our plainclothes teams to areas where these illegal swipers are most likely to be working. This year we have effected 1,170 arrests for illegal sales of swipes system-wide, an 8% increase over the same period last year. In addition, this year our officers have effected 261 arrests system-wide, specifically for criminal tampering with the MetroCard vending machines. We'll continue to conduct operations at locations with the highest incidence of this vandalism to MetroCard vending machines and the illegal sale of swipes. Thank you, Mr. Tom Prendergast, Carmen Bianco, Joe Lita, and the members of this board for continued support, and any questions I welcome.
All right, questions for Chief Fox? Alan?
Okay, I will do the obligatory thank you, Chief Fox, for continuing your diligent efforts on behalf of keeping our system safe. A couple of points. Number one, we have a new district attorney elected in Brooklyn, and I would ask that if you would follow up with Chairman Prendergast and meet with the district attorney to convey our need for the cooperation of the DAs in helping to prosecute the crimes that occur in their respective counties and its impact, so that they're fully briefed as they begin, as the new district attorney begins his term.
Thank you, Alan.
Very, very important to our operations. And the second issue, I don't believe it comes under your purview, but I'll raise at this point the program with respect to the buses and the fare beating, where we funded Anecdotally, I'm hearing lots of good things that are occurring out there. We were going to get a report on that at some point. I'm wondering, is that coming? Are we funding the program adequately? So where are we?
Yes, you're speaking of the Eagle team, and we will have a report. I think it'll be up for January. But what you're hearing anecdotally is exact happening. Lots of positive results. The team is could you, Chief, if you wouldn't mind, would you unkey that mic? The team is growing in size. They're not only looking at the new routes that we're running, but they're looking at the fare evasion issue across the system. And the results are very encouraging, and we will give you a report on that.
Any other questions for Chief Fox? All right.
Can I make one
application granted?
I just want to make this point because I think it's really important as we move towards the latter part of our agenda today on EEO and diversity. About 28% of the Eagle team are former veterans, so it's not only a good thing, it's a great thing that we're making those investments in people.
All right. For those of you who think finance has something to do with running the subway system, back to you, Carmen.
Thank you. Finance preliminary August 2013 financial results. Preliminary August 2013 and New York City Transit fare box revenue was $344.4 million. That's $6.7 million, or 2% above forecast. Year-to-date revenue was $13.3 million, or 0.5% above forecast. The average non-student fare in August 2013 was $1.78. In constant $19.96, the August average fare fell from $1.38.96 to $1.15 in 2013. Preliminary August 2013 operating expenses before depreciation and OPEB exceeded forecast by $2 million, or 0.4%. Labor expenses were above forecast by $6.5 million, or 1.7%, due mostly to higher overtime expenses. Non-labor expenses were below forecast by $4.4 million, or 3.1%, mostly attributable to favorable results in paratransit service contracts, electric power, and maintenance contracts, partly offset by the unfavorable timing of professional service contract expenses. Year-to-date, operating expenses were favorable to forecast by $15.3 million, or 0.3%, including labor expense underruns of $18.3 million, or 0.5%, resulting largely from lower health and welfare rates and vacancies, partially offset by higher overtime expenses. Non-labor expenses exceeded the forecast by $3 million, or 0.3%. Moving on to ridership, preliminary ridership, August 2013. New York City Transit's ridership totaled 193.2 million, 1.7% above forecast. August 2013 average weekday ridership results compared to August 2012 were as follows. Subway ridership was 5.1 million, an increase of 0.6%, and the highest of any August in over 45 years. New York City Transit local bus ridership was 1.9 million, a decrease of 1.8%. New York City Transit Express bus ridership was 40,000, a decrease of 2.4%. Paratransit ridership was 29,000, a decrease of 1.2%. An early look at preliminary September 2013 financial results. Farebox revenue was $7 million, 2.1% above forecast in September. Year-to-date, Farebox revenue was $20.3 million, or 0.7% above forecast. Operating expenses were below forecast in September by $32 million, or 6.1%. Year-to-date, operating expenses were favorable by $47.3 million, or 0.9%.
Carmen, when you say that's the highest subway ridership in over 45 years, did we keep data 46 years ago?
That's as far back as the data
goes.
goes.
Okay, so this is I see. So
yeah.
in all the years we've been keeping data, this is the highest of them all.
That is correct.
I got you.
That's really the wonderful news from your report, that subway ridership continues to climb, and August is a traditionally fairly soft month. Some folks are on holiday.
Absolutely.
For it to be the highest August, I mean, people are voting with their feet and with their Metro cards, and we hope it continues. It's great.
We certainly do, too.
Okay. Over to Darrell for buses. Sorry,
Just
Chuck
one
has
quick question. Have you gotten any handle on the increasing overtime as to cause?
Well, we know that it's in a couple of areas. One is in vacancies, certainly, and on the bus side of the house, it's certainly in what we would call traffic. The amount of construction going on certainly delays the buses coming back into the depot, and that creates an awful lot of unscheduled overtime, if you will. But part of it is we had a high attrition rate due to retirements. We are working a plan in those jobs where we need to, for instance, a train operator takes a number of months in order to put through the school and do all the, on-the-job training that we have to do. But that is one particular craft where we found ourselves short, and we have found a way to double up on the amount of training that we need to run parallel classes so that we can catch up and again minimize the amount of unscheduled overtime. So yeah, they're two of the areas I would highlight.
All right, MTA Bus Finance, back to you, Darrell.
Okay, year-to-date August 2013 fare box revenues for MTA Bus was $131.6 million, which is $1.1 million or 0.8% better than the mid-year forecast. The average non-student fare was $1.76 in August, up 7.3% from August 2012. Year-to-date August 2013 actual MTA Bus non-reimbursable accrued expenses before depreciation and OPEB were $3.8 million, or 1% below the mid-year forecast. The performance against forecast represents the net of favorable non-labor expense underruns of $4.1 million and a nominal unfavorable labor expense overrun of $0.2 million. Labor expenses were marginally unfavorable due to higher payroll and overtime costs, partially offset by favorable timing of other fringe benefits, OPEB and pension costs. Higher payroll costs were mainly due to the vacation buyback program. Greater overtime costs were mainly the result of increased facility maintenance costs, heat-related repairs, and our greater reliance on predictive maintenance and the resulting repairs that have been accelerated to minimize in-service failures. The favorable non-labor expense underrun was primarily due to lower than forecasted spending and the favorable timing of payments for maintenance contracts, fuel, and claims expenses, partially offset by higher materials and supply expenses. On to ridership. Preliminary year-to-date August 2013 MTA bus ridership totaled 82.7 million, which is 0.9 or 700,000 higher than the mid-year forecast. Preliminary August 2013 average weekday local bus ridership was 335,000, an increase of 0.2% from August 2012. Preliminary August 2013 average weekday express bus ridership was 31,000, a decrease of 6.8% from August 2012. Preliminary August 2013 average weekend local bus ridership was 396,000, an increase of 4.5% from August 2012. This concludes MTA Bus Finance and Ridership Reports. A preliminary September 2013 fare box revenue is $16.9 million, $0.3 million, or 2.1% above forecast. Year-to-date fare box revenue is $148.6 million, 1.4 million above forecast. Operating expenses of $45.4 million are below forecast in September by $3.2 million, or 6.6%. Year-to-date preliminary operating expenses of $417 million are favorable by $7 million, or 1.7%. With that, if there's no questions, I'll move. Yes.
Can I just ask one somewhat arcane question? I see more and more instances of where the bus pulls into the curb, head first with its butt sticking out in the middle of the street, blocking traffic and making it difficult for pedestrians on occasion to navigate. Is something done by the system to deal with folks who do that?
Absolutely. Many years ago, we had a culture of angling buses into bus stops, and of course, on the when you relieve from that and come out of that, you're more prone to have an accident. So at least a decade ago, or maybe even prior to that, we teach our operators to parallel, if there's a blocking car, to parallel and kneel the bus. Most recently, we've seen an increase in some unsafe behavior, so we're responding with more observation rides, and we have a campaign right now where we're really visible on the road right now, trying to course correct much of our, quote unquote bad behavior on the part of our bus operators.
Good, thank you. Jeff.
Mark, this is more of not necessarily a question for Darrell, but more of just an overall comment. We've had the MTA bus operating as a separate entity since the MTA took over from the city probably 8, 9, 10, almost 10 years at this point. Nassau County Bus is now sort of off. I would urge the MTA to really think about and to work with the incoming city administration about finding a way, both operationally, financially, labor, finding a real way to make MTA bus either disappear or work cohesively with the New York City Transit. I know that it's a very large undertaking, but one that has to happen at this point. I don't see any reason why it shouldn't. And I think given the incoming new city administration, I think there's a real opportunity to dive into those real difficult issues that need to finally be resolved. Because this just can't continue.
Sounds like a true former director of operations for the city.
Why is it not integrated now? Why isn't it all one bus system?
Well,
It's all one city.
It is operated as one bus system. To our customers and to most folk, there is no barriers. We operate with the same standards. We account for the finances and all of the statistical data because it is a separate funding stream, and that's the way it was set up. And as you recall, some maybe 10 years ago, the vision was a regional bus system that was inclusive of Long Island Bus, the 8 private bus companies, along with New York City Transit. So since the funding stream has remained separate, we've continued to operate on paper as a separate agency.
But the point that Commissioner Kay makes seems to me to be indisputable, namely, time for a change. We ought to just pull them all together.
Mr. Chairman? Is it true that a large part of MTA bus, that is the old express buses, operate under an agreement with the city and a separate source of, for want of a better term, subsidy funding that they were already paying to the privates?
Yes, but it's more expansive. I mean, MTA bus operates close to 1,300 buses, which is mostly local bus service in Queens and Southeast Brooklyn. So it's not just relegated to express service.
But that's all together, and there are separate funding streams.
Absolutely.
I think that's one of the reasons and points that should be looked into is sort of ownership over it. I know the MTA does a great job and is always looking out there, and I don't mean this in any way whatsoever, but accountability needs to really be set in place. There needs to be ownership in one fashion, whether it's the city just paying whatever the bills the MTA provides, or, once and for all, it either has to be, we have to look into cutting it off. I know early on there were labor issues. I guess there's no labor issues anymore.
The labor issues are still expansive. We have a multitude of contracts that are unsettled, and I would say on the part of the city has been diligent in paying the operating expenses.
I don't question that.
So there's been no issue with the city.
I don't question that, but I think it is an arcane funding stream that at some point needs to be worked out for the benefit of both.
And Darrell, labor issues can best be worked out by talking to labor, which would be a nice change for this agency.
I think the point you're making, Commissioner, is valid, and I will certainly make sure that the chairman, that we voice that with the chairman. I can answer the question on cohesiveness, and I would certainly look at Darrell to add to this, but internally, we work it as if it's one system in many, many ways.
Mark?
You know, I think that the shift from the private bus companies to the MTA service-wise has been a tremendous success, notwithstanding the difficulties of integrating the different companies and their contracts and cultures and employees and what have you into the whole, which I can understand is an ongoing tale, although I think you've made a lot of progress, as a matter of fact. It seems to work. But the pattern of having the city pick up dollar for dollar the deficit in providing that part of bus service in this region is odd, frankly. The original hope was that, in thinking of perhaps evening out the cost of crossing rivers in this town with a revenue benefit that might be shared between mass transit and other purposes. Some time ago now, the thinking was that that might be a way of picking up the incremental cost of the bus service without a direct subsidy from New York City. The trouble with the direct subsidy is that I think, in fact, the relationship has worked well over the last number of years, in that the MTA has been responsible in restraining spending in the bus company as though it were in fact a part of the enterprise that the MTA pays for with its own money. But I think that that's a sort of business relationship that is enormously dependent on mutual respect and goodwill, which suffer from weather changes from time to time. And it's probably not the most sort of structurally rational and serviceable foundations for running buses in this town.
This seems to be a natural segue into capital programs. Fred, are you still here? Oh, there you are.
Good morning. Okay, looking at capital program results, commitments during September totaled $8.9 million, all as part of a Lower Manhattan Resiliency Initiative in the aftermath of Superstorm Sandy, including 3 projects. The fabrication of stair covers at 10 flood-vulnerable station stairwells, protection of entrances, hatches, ventilation louvers, ventilation gratings, manholes, doors, and elevators at the South Ferry Station complex, and a 3rd project to provide for the fabrication of deployable sidewalk ventilation covers at selected Lower Manhattan stations. These are primarily in the area of Rector, the 2 Rector Streets, Broad, Bowling Green, and Whitehall. Meanwhile, the completions during the month of September totaled $61.9 million, including a project to furnish and install bus radio equipment at 4 locations citywide, and a mainline track reconstruction segments along the White Plains Road carrying the 2 and 5 train in the Bronx as part of the annual track and switch reconstruction program. That completes my report, Mr. Chairman.
All right, questions on the capital report? Dan?
Fred, when do you expect we'll have an update on the South Ferry Station, how the reconstruction is going?
We are scheduled right now in the new plan for 2014 to provide a Sandy recovery presentation at CPOC. The chairman has asked for that, but that would be for all agencies. But next month at the December CPOC, we have a stations update. We've also added a piece on the South Ferry Station as well.
Thanks.
Okay.
All right, on to procurements. We seem to have a record number, although it's just one big one for medical plans. Steve Plochy, are you here?
Yes, I am.
All right, the floor is yours.
Good morning. The procurement package, which presents New York City Transit procurements, includes 15 actions totaling $1.7 billion in expenditures. I would like to highlight 2 procurements included in this month's agenda. Over the past several years, in order to contain the effects of rising healthcare costs, New York City Transit began competing contracts for the provision of certain benefit plans. These plans cover approximately 150,000 employees, retirees, and their dependents. This month, we seek board approval to exercise options to extend the terms of the contracts to provide medical health benefits and pharmaceutical benefits management. The first procurement consists of exercising two one-year options to the medical health benefits contracts with Empire Health Choice Insurance, Inc., United Healthcare Insurance of New York, and Aetna Healthcare, Inc., in the estimated amount of $1.5 billion, and extend these contracts through 2015. In connection with the award of these contracts, we worked with our consultants to convert all plans to self-insured and compete for alternate carriers in order to achieve savings and avoid cost increases. Our efforts were very successful, and we anticipate savings of more than $200 million over the 5-year term of these contracts. As part of the exercise of the options, a consultant survey indicated that the reimbursement rates that are in place between the carriers and other healthcare carriers remain competitively priced in the current market. Although the contracts had two one-year options whereby the administrative fees had already been negotiated, we were successful in having Empire and United Healthcare waive their previously negotiated increases and agree to maintain their 2013 administrative fees if we exercised both options at this time. This strategy resulted in additional savings of approximately $2.1 million, and board approval was therefore requested to exercise both one-year options. Aetna administers the Medicare Advantage plan, and a portion of its premium is set by the federal government based on the plan design and location of its participants in order to establish a group rate. The federal government must approve the plan design before Aetna can provide New York City Transit with a premium rate. While the rate for 2014 has already been approved, Aetna was very aggressive in its underwriting and will maintain its portion of the rate the same as in 2013. The second procurement is to exercise a one-year option to continue pharmaceutical benefits management services contract with OptumRx through 2014 at an estimated cost of $200 million. I'd like to point out that during the current 16-month extension, changes were implemented for greater financial savings. On January 1, 2013, New York City Transit negotiated improved financial terms and returned to a traditional pricing model. And on April 1, we converted to a prescription drug plan for Medicare retirees and their dependents. Our consultant performed an analysis based on 2013 estimated expenditures that projects savings at $24 million. The projected savings for these strategies for 2014 is more than $30 million. I ask for your approval of all the actions in the agenda.
Thank you, Steve. Questions for Steve? Chuck?
Mr. Chairman, two things. First, a question, and then I would like to be recorded as abstaining from both. The question: have you negotiated collectively these contracts, or either of them, with the relevant unions?
No. When we first went out to bid, when we first went out in 2010, one representative from all the unions that the union selected was on the selection panel, and they were, so they approved all this. But this is just an option to that existing contract.
Correct me if I'm wrong, didn't they file a grievance for failure to collectively bargain the labor contract, these healthcare contracts?
Yeah, but they lost.
All right, that was the question. And the answer is you don't have to bargain? Is that the point?
That's the point. I mean,
okay.
Yeah.
Do you still wish to be recorded as abstaining,
Absolutely.
sir? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the procurements? Second? Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? All right. Unpaid public servants who constitute the board, you can go home and tell your family that you voted to expend $1,730,400,000 and change today. Thank you all very much. Service changes. Who's going to do that, Carmen?
I will take the lead in, and then I will turn it to Peter Caffiero to discuss the specifics. Under the service change section of the agenda this month, we're presenting two staff summaries for committee information, one for New York City Transit, the other for MTA Bus. But before I turn it over to Peter, let me just make a quick note. That is, this Thursday evening, November 14th, we'll be holding a public hearing on bus service changes affecting the BX24, the B37, the B70, B8, and X17 routes. These service changes were part of the service enhancement presented to the board at the July board meeting. The hearing will start at 5 p.m. and will be at 2 Broadway. Members of this committee are certainly invited to attend if you can. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Carmen. New York City Transit's proposed service changes to implement some routine schedule adjustments on a number of subway routes, the 2, 3, 4, 5, on the A division, and the A, E, F, and L. These adjustments would be effective in June of 2014 and are part of the routine and ongoing schedule adjustments that we do throughout the system. Usually we're talking about bus adjustments, but in this case we have some rail ones that have been identified in response to board-approved loading guidelines and the process for adjusting service. Implementation of these adjustments is anticipated to cost about $4.3 million annually, which is reflected in our 2014 operating budget. And there's details on page 6.4 in the agenda. So that's the New York City Transit change. I'll turn it over to Darrell for the MTA bus.
Okay, I would like to take a moment before I give it over to Mark Holmes to go over the service changes. I'd like to take a moment to recognize the retirement of Norm Silverman, the Vice President of Ops Planning for MTA Bus. Norm was a very valuable member of the MTA Bus management team. He devoted 41 years to the success of the MTA, including time at both New York City Transit and MTA Bus. Norm spent the last 8 years at MTA Bus, where he played an integral role in the consolidation of the private companies into one agency and bringing the bus schedules and service plans up to the same guidelines and standards used by New York City Transit. We will miss him, and we wish him the best for a safe, happy, and healthy retirement. And with that, Mark, please take it.
Thank you, Norm, for your 41 years of public service. You're a model for all of us to live up to. Mark?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Darrell. For MTA, a one staff summary is an information item. The staff summary describes a permanent revision of the travel path of the Q39 in Long Island City, Queens. We propose to use 44th Drive between 23rd Street and Thompson Avenue instead of 45th Avenue westbound and Jackson Avenue eastbound. This revised travel path will provide greater symmetry, travel on wider streets, and make less turns. This revision also includes the relocation of 2 eastbound bus stops and 3 westbound bus stops. However, they still remain proximate to the subway. And that's all I have. Any questions?
Any questions for Mark? Okay, Carmen, what's next?
Okay, sorry.
Alan?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a quick comment on the service increases that were announced. I think that calling them routine kind of takes away from the fact that the MTA is investing another $4.3 million in meeting the needs of customers with respect to crowding conditions and decreasing headways. And you know, we do a lot of things, and by delegating the authority to the respective divisions, but that should not take away from the fact that there are a whole lot of passengers who are going to be getting their service increase as a result of these actions, and I'm glad that that's starting to become routine and that we're not moving the other direction. So I just want to comment on that.
Thank you, Alan. Now,
I just say one thing pursuant to Alan. I'm assuming that the reason you're able to make such a wonderful improvement on the L line is because the L line has CBTC. Is that a fair statement?
That is a fair statement.
Okay, so we now currently have CBTC underway on the 7 line and on the Culver line, correct?
We have CBTC underway on the 7 line right now. The Culver line is the test track.
Just a test. Okay, well, if this is the result of getting CBTC on there and able to space more trains in, this is a great thing. Thank you.
It's one of the benefits of CBTC.
Yeah, well done. MetroCard.
Okay, let me talk about special presentations, if you will. Section 7 of this month's agenda begins with our regular status report on the Metro Card program. We've also included for your information the results of the annual Subway Customer Satisfaction Survey and the annual Local Bus Customer Satisfaction Survey. Following the annual surveys, we have the New York City Transit and MTA Bus Committee Charter, also presented for committee information. And finally, in this section, we note that materials for the 2014 preliminary budgets for New York City Transit, MTA Bus, and Staten Island Railway were distributed previously. Standard follow-up reports. For our standard follow-up reports, we have the elevator and escalator performance report covering the third quarter of 2013, and I'm happy to report that we have met our 2013 third quarter elevator and escalator availability goal for the 8th straight quarter. 24-hour availability for escalators was at 95.8% and for elevators 97.3%. Following the elevator and escalator report, we have the Transit Adjudication Bureau report also covering the third quarter of 2013. The final items in this section are the New York City Transit and MTA Bus Company EEO and diversity reports. Both reports provide EEO and HR data as of September 30th, 2013. And I'm happy to speak to you this morning, to this committee, about my thoughts on equal employment opportunity and diversity for the first time as the president of New York City Transit. But first, I want to share with you a thought that I have as I take over and as I begin to lead this organization. And it's a philosophy and a concept that I've already put out there for all of our employees and for all of the leaders across this organization. And that's the mindset that people matter. People matter in terms of our customers, the 7.2 million people that we provide services to each and every day on the system, and for the 46,000 employees that make it happen each and every day. And I never want to lose sight of that's critical in this operation. And I think as we look at this issue of diversity and EEO, when Tom chose me for this job, he did that because he had a huge amount of trust in the fact that I would do this job, and I need to have that same integrity, that same credibility as I lead this organization going forward.
Well, the committee nominated you too, you know.
And the committee nominated me. Thank you. But that's huge for me, is to realize that there's a huge trust factor in this. For those who have placed their trust in me to manage New York City Transit, they have my commitment to ensure their safety and the dignity and respect of every employee and customer, and further to confirm that every person seeking an employment opportunity with New York City Transit does so from a level playing field. It's long been the policy of New York City Transit to base its employment decisions on the quality of the experience, skill, education, work record, and character of those seeking employment with us, without regard to their identification or perceived identification with any group or classification of people. It's also our policy to seek to create a diverse and inclusive workforce that reflects the communities and the customers we serve. We believe that the breadth and wealth of personal and professional experience derived from a diverse and inclusive workforce enables us to better anticipate, understand, and meet the needs of the communities and the customers we serve. Regarding New York City Transit's workforce demographics, men and women of color make up 73% of the entire workforce, 67% of all the operating supervisors, and approximately half of all managers. Obviously, when looking at people of color collectively, there is a tremendous racial and ethnic diversity in our workforce. However, when looking at discrete racial ethnic groups, our report points out that there is underrepresentation of Hispanics in administrative, clerical jobs, labor-intensive skilled craft jobs, and within the service maintenance jobs. Women make up 17% of the total workforce, 14% of the operating supervisors, and approximately 26% of all managers. These demographics show that women continue to be underrepresented agency-wide, and especially in the managerial and supervisory ranks, as well as in the labor-intensive skilled craft jobs. We continue to evaluate our strategies to consider how we can improve the representation of women and Hispanics where they are underrepresented in our workforce. On page 8.35 of the committee book, you'll see some of the efforts we have undertaken to address the underrepresentation of women, Hispanics, and other underrepresented groups. Regarding these efforts, I'd like to highlight our outreach efforts to our nation's veterans, particularly those men and women who have recently returned from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. We have a full program to go out and do outreach in terms of helping with interviewing techniques, helping with resume building, actually holding workshops at Fort Hamilton in Brooklyn. We've participated in 15 veteran-specific job fairs, and we continue to do that, and we will continue to do this as we go on. Our Eagle team, as a matter of fact, I mentioned earlier that our significant number of members on the Eagle team are also veterans of our military. So our outreach and recruitment efforts embody the spirit of the concept that I mentioned, people matter, and reflect our recognition that veterans possess unique skill sets that are aligned with our values at New York City Transit. On page 8.27 of the committee book, you will see these job categories where women are underrepresented. And on the next page of the committee book, you'll see where we hired women in those categories between January 1st and September 30th. For example, 19 official and administrators, 3 paraprofessionals, 145 administrative support, 51 skilled crafts, and 254 service maintenance. In addition, on page 8.27 of the committee book, you will see those job categories where Hispanics are underrepresented. And on the next page of the committee book, you will see where we hired Hispanics in all the categories between January 1st and September 30th. For example, 55 administrative support, 129 skilled craft, and 241 service maintenance. If you have any questions, I, along with Dawn Pinnock, our Vice President of Human Resources, and Joel Andrews, our Chief EEO Officer, would be happy to answer them. But I'd also like to pass it along to Daryl, who will provide the report for MTA Bus.
Yeah, go ahead, Daryl, and then we'll take questions to both of you.
Okay, thank you, Carmen. I also share Carmen's philosophy regarding the value of our employees and customers. As president of MTA Bus Company and senior vice president of the Department of Buses, my vision and efforts have been to unify 8 private bus companies and integrate them into a diverse, established transit agency. At the cornerstone of this vision is my guiding principle of managing buses as a business to ensure we provide safe, efficient, and reliable service while communicating with our customers every stop along the way and making every dollar count. A valuable resource that will aid us in accomplishing our goal is to continually increase our efforts to employ a workforce that reflects the communities in which we operate. Further, I recognize that a diverse workforce requires an investment in continuous learning and development so that they will be fully equipped with the tools required to be successful at their jobs. In support of this effort, in-house programs are being developed and delivered in each of the major operating disciplines: transportation, maintenance, administration, and safety. In addition, we place an emphasis on communication strategies that continually reinforce clear expectations and deliverables at every level of management. These measures are helping us foster a cohesive team that is capable of dealing with the evolving changes in demographics throughout the boroughs we serve. Regarding MTA Bus Company's employee demographics, men and women of color make up 43% of the entire workforce, 43% of all operating supervisors, and 45% of all managers. While we've made great strides in these demographics, we see further opportunities. It should be noted that since unifying the 8 private bus companies and integrating them into the MTA family, people of color make up 80% of all new hires, and a trend that continues through the 3rd quarter of 2013. Between January 1 and September 30th, 2013, there were approximately 260 new hires. Approximately 12%, or 32, are women, 46% or 119 are black, 27% or 69 are Hispanic, and 7% or 19 are Asian. When looking at discrete racial and ethnic groups, females and Hispanics represent key opportunities for us to continue strengthening diversity within MTA Bus. Females make up 12% of the total workforce, 4% of all operating supervisors, and 20% of all managers. The demographics show females continue to be underrepresented in the following categories: officials and administrators, protective services, administrative support, and skilled craft. On page 8.31 of the committee book, you will see these job categories where women are underrepresented. On page 8.33 of the committee book, you may also notice we did not hire any women in these categories between January 1 and September 30th. However, it should be noted that 96% of the new hires within the 4 categories are non-discretionary or list hires. In addition, 67% of these new hires are people of color. Hispanics show underrepresentation in the following categories: protective services, administrative support, skilled craft, and service maintenance. On page 8.31 of the committee book, you will see these job categories where Hispanics are underrepresented. And on page 8.33 of the committee book, you will see where we hired Hispanics in these categories between January 1 and September 30th, representing 32% of new hires, which were 51 in service maintenance, 8 skilled craft, and 2 administrative and support. It should also be noted that 87% of the new hires for the aforementioned 4 categories are people of color. As noted by Carmen, we are committed to improving the representation of women, Hispanics, and other underrepresented groups in our workforce. Page 8.35 of the committee book highlights these efforts we have taken to support our commitment to make improvement in the underrepresented groups. Thank you, and if you have any questions, we'll field them now.
Questions for Darrell or for Carmen? Chuck?
Mr. Chairman, I think it needs to be said that Carmen and his team are to be complimented by being forthcoming in addressing a problem that has existed throughout the public service system in this state and the agencies that comprise the MTA. I think you're to be congratulated for taking the lead and doing what is right, and I thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. All right, it is time to turn to the person with the most challenging job at the MTA by far, a man whose moniker we have assigned to him, Dr. H, is now universal. Michael Horad-Deshadow. Michael?
Thank you, and I will try to be as brief as I can. The time is kind of late. A picture sometimes is worth 1,000 words, in mine with an accent for sure. Bogdan, can you put it on? Can I get the lights? Well, I'm gonna try to show you the installation of the at the Fulton. That is actually very dramatic. We worked very fast. This is 4 minutes for about 2 months worth of work. You'll see it when it's done. These are optical panels that reflect the light down to the lowest level.
What you saw is the installation of this net that is supposed to be natural, brings natural light all the way down to the absolutely lowest level. The work is progressing well. We are installing right now the last glass enclosures in the second level. The third one is done, and we expect to be pretty much on time with everything. Actually, we are right now ahead of time. And that's about it as far as Fulton.
It's not good for your reputation
No
to be
good,
ahead
not
of
at all.
time on all these projects.
No,
you
no,
know?
let's do not exaggerate right now. Anyway, let me go to Second Avenue. We have also some pictures on Second Avenue. They're just pictures, and I would like just to walk you through some of it, and I'll explain as we go along. This is the Community Information Center on Second Avenue that was open at the end of August. We have over 2,000 visitors. We have lecture series, and it's very successful in making sure that people get the right information as to where the project is and what we're doing. 96th Street Station, this is a picture from June 2012. Progress in 2013. This is how it looked September, so you can see already the concreting has been done. This is actually in the same exact location this October, and we are actually started to pour the mezzanine in that area, and as well as we started to put together the formwork for the don't go that fast. Go back. Okay. And this is, we have already poured a large number of the mezzanine slabs, actually about 2/3 of them, close to 70% actually, they are already in place. And we expect to provide the system contractor with access. In fact, we already did, but we started to deliver rail. Where is the rail? Okay. About 1/3 of the rail was delivered. The second, I think, is happening right now, the second third, and by the probably very soon we'll be done with the delivery of rail. The 86th Street Station, the Mack House, we started to dismantle the Mack House, at least partially dismantling, between 83rd and 84th, and the gantry will remain in place until spring of 2014, so we can move material. The gantry is right here, you can see it. It's the dark box above that. The Mack House at 86 and 87 will also be dismantled totally in spring of 2014. Next. One of the things that, this is February 2013. It shows where we are in terms of excavation. The same exact location, September 2013, we have the waterproof installation in place. That's proceeding well. And this is also the arch form. This is November 2013. I'd like to mention that we have completed the blasting in the caverns, and right now we still have some blasting going on at the 86th Street Station in front of the Yorkshire. So that will be completed also by the end of November. One of the things I wanted to mention, this is a 31-story high building, archstone building, and we have an entrance that will go in, and this used to be the Tony's Pizzeria that we took over, and go next. And what you're seeing here is actually an underpinning of the back of the building. In order to create the entrance, we had to come in and underpin the building at the back. I just wanted to show you how many stories are up, and this is an underground entrance, and that's where the entrance will be in the future at that particular location. So we are now at a point that the underpinning is completed, and we are proceeding with the finishes work. 72nd Street, again, April 2012. Then, are you in a hurry, Bogdan? Can you follow me? I know. And this is April 2012.
Now, moving forward, this is the cavern waterproofing in May 2013, and by now, if you go to the next one, it's pretty much finished, and it is progressing well, and we can turn it over to the finishes contractor. And the mock house that has, this is at 72nd Street, as you can see, was obstructing some of the views in the apartment building. Just next to it, they had a beautiful view of a box. Now, go on. We started to dismantle it in June this year. And next, this is July next. This is also July next. And this is October. We actually closed the area, and it will still be used in the maintenance and protection of traffic for people to be able to store material, but that looks right now pretty much the way a street ought to look. We done here? Can you turn on the light? Thanks. The number 7, I would like to mention actually something that is important for the 2nd Avenue, because we have some issues that we are working on. And one of the issues is the fact that we are installing a low vibration track system, and is scheduled to start in the existing tunnels between 99 and 105th Street by late November. We were precise, just about November 26. And we have submitted a Buy America non-availability waiver request because some of our subcomponents are referred to, but it's a boot that is a rubber boot that is made in Costa Rica, and a neoprene pad that is made in Austria. So, and then they're put together here somewhere in Ohio. The issue is that there is we could not totally comply with Buy America. We asked for a non-availability waiver. We believe that it's making its way through the process. However, due to the shutdown in October, that has been not acted upon. So we are at this point looking at a potential delay, and we are looking at way to solve it. We don't have yet a solution, and that will eat from our contingency that we are so dearly holding on to, because it's so important to us. So just wanted to make sure that this is an area of concern, and that a favorable response to this request is needed in order to proceed with this critical work without incurring cost and schedule delay. So we are watching it carefully. Okay, I would like to go to number 7. The ongoing construction overall, we are about 90% done of the construction required for revenue service. The secondary station 8, Site P, is not required for revenue service, and that will be completed in 2016. Through the end of September, Skanska rail work was approximately 74% done. We have a couple of issues that we are now looking to see how we can mitigate. One of them is the fact that the factory acceptance testing for the inclined elevators, here we have the first time, actually, I think in the United States, inclined elevators rather than straight down. They are European made, and they failed the factory accepted testing in August, so we looking to have a factory acceptance testing at the end of November that will be successful. Also, the escalators has also failed the factory acceptance testing, a variety of issues, and again, that provides us with some trepidation in terms of potential delays on completion. We had, and we still have, a stop work order that was issued by New York City Transit because we have, instead of having cast-in-place concrete, we had shotcrete. That is pretty common, actually, but we are working through it. We have retained 2 independent engineers that are looking to be able to provide the certification necessary so we can lift the stop work order. We expect that to be the case relatively soon, and we are pursuing that, and we're looking to see what can we do to mitigate any potential delays we do not have yet put in place. We're working with the contractor to make sure that that happens. Otherwise, all other work is proceeding well.
Will a train be able to take any incumbent mayor from Times Square to the Javits Center before December 31st?
The work on that is proceeding on schedule, and the answer is yes. Two. Yeah, but there is an interlocking before and after, so trains can actually move in whatever platform they want to be.
When we were discussing the problems on the 7 line, you know, the junction between 33rd and Queensboro Plaza and the limitations there and the installation of CBTC.
Right.
You had mentioned, or someone had mentioned, that the possibility of 3 terminal tracks at the Javits Center Station was in there.
That was way, way back. By the time I got here in 2008, that was off the table.
Dr. Rodney-Chadu, as I heard you a moment ago, there's some problem with the escalators now?
In order to install escalators, we need the factory acceptance testing. The first time around it failed, and the failure had to do with the fact that the rail and the steps were moving at different speeds. That's not a good thing. You either leave your hand behind or it runs ahead of you. That is been tested. It appears at this point that the technical solutions have been solved. There is a test that is being undertaken by the contractor on their own premises, but because of the length of the and the height that is required to do a factory accepted testing for the whole escalator, we have accepted that and the contractor will do it at their own risk, that they will install it and test it in place. So if it doesn't work in place, they will have to take it out.
Who is the escalator contractor?
Well, it's Coney, I guess is proper pronunciation for it, but the Skanska Railworks is the contractor, is a joint venture, and they have Coney as a basically an escalator supplier, and I do not remember who is the elevator. It's an Italian company right now. Huh? Nesparo.
Thank you.
Isn't it fun to always take the lowest bidder? Further questions for Dr. H? Do we have any further business to come before the meeting? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Thanks, everybody.